Hey Tony, it's Friday, and first off, to answer your question of the week, I think my favorite part of American history, it's a hard one. I'm gonna probably say 1890 to about 1930. I find that era fascinating, in part because of the Gilded Age, which I feel strongly relates to today. I also love the progressive era because I find that a lot of ideas that happened during the progressive era are absolutely brilliant and really moved our country in the right direction. Then you also I enjoy the Roaring Twenties because it's just fascinating, the Prohibition and how it was an attempt to legislate morality and it failed, and also how it started organized crime, which I also find fascinating. So I'm probably going to say that whole era is my favorite because of how much we deal with today relates to that time. Even World War One completely changed warfare in the world, so that's also its own fascinating aspect as well.
Texas history, best history.
Nobody cares, Justice.
Sorry, I had to do it.
So, what I actually want to talk about today is also history, but a different kind of history. So, as you probably know, Tony, I've always had a real interest in true crime stories, and I also love unsolved mysteries and things such as that. So, this video is mostly going to come along for two things. One, there's a podcast I've been listening to lately that is phenomenal, excellent, heavily recommend it, that is about an unsolved murder not too far away from where I live now, that I'm probably going to talk most of this video about. And also, Taylor, Justin, and I have been watching a lot of BuzzFeed Unsolved. I heavily recommend it. It's very funny and also very fascinating. I'm always going to be more fond of true crime over supernatural, but they have both. Both are pretty entertaining, but the true crime is really what I find better, because these are things that happened and don't have a solution yet, and it makes my mind go wild. But so, also recommended it. You can watch it on YouTube for free, so you should watch it for sure. It's very funny. The two hosts, Shane and Ryan, have great chemistry together, and I heavily recommend it. But so now I'm going to talk about the Brook murders. So the Brook murders, the bodies were found in a huge state park up in New Hampshire called Bear Brook Reservation. I think it's the largest state park in the Northeast. But don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is. And it's heavily, heavily wooded. So let's talk about what the Brook murders were and kind of the story behind it. The podcast that I've been listening to is called Brook. It's done by New Hampshire Public Radio. You should listen to it. It's incredibly well done. It's really creepy. It's really fascinating. So definitely listen to the podcast. But so the Brook murders. The bodies were found in 1985 in this Bear Brook Reservation in New Hampshire. The bodies remained unidentified for literal decades. They actually just figured out who the bodies were 2 months ago. Almost 35 years after the bodies were initially found. They were believed to have been killed between 1977 and 1981. And they were at Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire. So for decades, there were no leads. The case went completely cold. Until a couple years back, they ended up doing a brand new forensic investigation using new forensic technology. I'm not sure the right term for it, but what ended up happening is they ended up figuring out, okay, looking at the isotopes in our body and the way our hair is and everything like that, they were able to kind of pinpoint rough areas of where the people were from. And which, went from they could have been all over the world to, the way they explain in the podcast, a much smaller haystack. Because you're still looking for a needle in a haystack, but now they're much smaller. And so this case went on for years and years and years with absolutely no leads. And people just kind of chalked it up as, we will never know. Well, people never gave up hope on it, and that's why I said just a couple months ago, 3 of the bodies were identified. Now the three bodies that were identified, one was of a 24-year-old woman named sorry, I'm looking it up right now, Marlisle Honeychurch. She was the mother of 2 other victims, Marie Vaughn and Sarah McWaters, of 2 different fathers. But what was kind of fascinating about this whole case is that they had no idea any of this. There were 2 bodies found in a barrel in 1985, and then a couple months later, 2 more bodies were found just about 300 feet away, of the other 2 who were, I believe, the youngest daughter, Sarah, and the one unidentified child still remaining. Now, the suspect was more or less discovered in actually another fascinating way. So the person who is believed to have committed these murders was a serial killer by the name of Terrence Terry Peter Rasmussen. His nickname was the Chameleon Killer. And the way they got this is he had lived all over the country using several different aliases, but ended up, kind of by a happenstance, getting found out as a killer in 2 ways. For one, his common law wife was found dead in his building. And the other way that they were able to really kind of tie him to other cases were one of the aliases he used left a child with a family in an RV park. So he ended up getting arrested for the murder of his common law wife, Unsoon Jun, I think was the name. But what ended up happening on that is he killed her, dismembered her, hid her body, typical serial killer stuff, and ended up basically his story kept changing as to where his wife went, and eventually the police were called on him. So they got that together and they discovered that he'd had all these different aliases. Now he ended up pleading guilty to the murder of Unsoon Jin. But the really fascinating part is it was during his trial. His attorney and him had first set up a theory of the case that he was not guilty of murder, but instead was an accessory to murder. But while he was in the hearing, he decided to just stand up and he pled guilty without going over it with his lawyer first. And so that kind of made people more think like, okay, why would somebody ever plead guilty to a murder unless there's something more there? And so one officer kept investigating further and further and ended up basically tying his DNA to some of the DNA that was found within these bodies. The one who remains still unidentified that we don't have a name for was this guy's daughter. And she was aged 2 to 4 when she was killed. So it was really kind of cool this podcast that I've been listening to and been really, really fascinated by, to find out that just 2 months ago, a huge breakthrough happened in this case. So it was kind of neat as I was doing some of my research to figure that out, as it makes true crime what it is, in which that there is a suspect out there. There is someone who did this out there, and it lets you just dive in to learn more about it. And as I said, heavily recommend the podcast, heavily recommend the show Unsolved. And this particular murder case really, I found absolutely fascinating. It's not the most fascinating one I've ever read about, but it's up there. So Tony, my question for you is going to be a really morbid one. What is your favorite murder case you've ever read about? Could be a serial killer, could be a crime of passion, could be anything there. But what is your favorite murder case you've ever read about? Tony, I'll see you on Tuesday. Later, bro.